Members, we're going to have a long afternoon today. We have attained the quorum. Shall we call the meeting to order? Please be seated. Can't quite hear you. All right, shall we get seated, close the door, and then we start talking. Will the journalists please excuse us? We are calling the meeting to order, please.
同事們呢要出去同
Members, if you want to engage the reporters for discussion, please do it outside. We start at 3:40. We have the quorum. We have three parts to this meeting. After the first part, there will be a 10-minute break. We'll come back at, we'll end at 5:40. We'll resume at 5:50 for the second part of the meeting. After the second part, there will be a dinner break for 30 minutes. And we are distributing the list for members. Please fill it out and return the form to the stewards. On the 30th of last month, we had a discussion on the subject of OALA. The administration retracted the paper and submitted a new paper to reflect the new commencement date and also the financial implications. Just a reminder that for today's subject for discussion, if there is any direct or indirect pecuniary interests, please, in accordance with 83A of the Rules of Procedure, disclose all the nature of the interests. And in accordance with 84 of the ROP, there are provisions regarding the voting arrangement if there are pecuniary interests. There will be a verbatim record of today's discussion for future reference by members. If members would like to move any motion under Section 37A of the Finance Committee procedure, please do so as soon as possible so that the Secretariat would have time to handle it and for me to issue my ruling. All right, let's move on to FCR. The agenda item 1, FCR 2012-1354. This item seeks approval of a total supplementary provision of 2,575.2 million in 2012-13 under Head 170 SWD with 2,567.9 million under Subhead 180 Social Security Allowance Scheme and 7.3 million under Subhead 000 Operational Expenses, and to increase in the ceiling placed on the total notional annual midpoint salary for implementing the Old Age Living Allowance in Para A above. With us to answer members' questions are Mr. Matthew Cheung, Secretary for Labour and Welfare, Ms. Irene Young, Deputy Secretary for Labour and Welfare, Mr. Patrick Nip, Director of Social Welfare, Mr. Fong Pak Yan, Deputy Director of Social Welfare, and Ms. Long Siu Kit, Assistant Director of Social Welfare and Social Security. And members will be given 5 minutes to put questions and for the reply to be given. Please do not speak until 4 minutes 49 seconds. This is a resubmission of the paper. At the members, please indicate your intention to speak again. May I, Chairman? It has nothing to do with this. The Secretary gave the undertaking that some questions will be answered. I mean, he promised us the replies at 3-ish. It's almost 4 now. We haven't seen any sight of the replies. Chairman, we have submitted the replies to the Secretariat. Right, these are being Xeroxed at the moment. Yes, indeed. I heard that they are being reproduced at the moment. All right, as soon as they are ready, they will be made available to members.
有委員？而家我有6個。
All right, I have 6 members who have pressed the button. 5 minutes each, please. Mr. Wong Kwok Kin. Chairman, thank you. I'd like to state that on this OALA, the FTU's position. First of all, the OALA should be on the basis of the existing mechanism. Those above the age of 70 should not be subject to any means test. We hope that more senior citizens will be able to get the benefit. We don't really want to impede those senior citizens who fulfill the criteria. We don't want to stop them getting the benefits sooner rather than later. So we are against any acts of filibustering here at this Finance Committee. Not only do we object to this, we would condemn any acts of this nature because a lot of senior citizens would be debarred from getting the OALA benefits. Those members who are intent on doing so, please think twice about it, because in doing so, a lot of senior citizens' interests will be undermined. We are seeking some other senior citizens to get the benefits. I mean, what you're going to do will be flying in the face of this good intention. And this is very much the position of the FTU that I'd like to state here. It's up to the Secretary whether to respond or not. Secretary? Thanks very much, Mr. Wong. We go along with what you have to say. I really do hope that within these 3 parts of the meeting, we will be able to put this to the vote so that we can launch it as soon as possible. Dr. Joseph Lee. Chairman, thank you. Well, I understand that after declaration, those above the age of 65 will be able to get an additional $1,000, and this is something we support. I find it rather strange. Subject to endorsement, I mean, the senior citizens would have been able to get $1,000 extra in October if members filibuster and we don't endorse it today. Then that's quite another matter. Now, if we delay this for another 2 months, you save the money for 2 months. I heard that there will be no backdating. Now, if this is endorsed today or next month, what are you going to do with the savings that you have achieved? Secretary? Well, we have repeated our positions that the money will be dispersed on the month in which the funding proposal is endorsed. We have already explained how we do it. Now, I've got only a simple message for members. Get this through as soon as possible, because if we delay it by 1 day, we lose 1 day's time. Now, we meant to get this endorsed by the end of October. If we cannot get this endorsed today, then there is very little chance of this being carried out in March. So I urge members to get this through within these 6 hours. Well, I've got some time left. My question is very simple. In October, we couldn't get this through. How are you going to use the money that you have saved? Now, are you going to spend less money as a result? How are you going to spend the savings? Now, we have Mr. Zhang and Mr. Chen here. Now, how are you going to help the senior citizens? They would stand to lose $1,000 for October. So the October, the money that you would have spent in October, how are you going to spend it? Secretary? Yes, indeed, Chairman. In our paper, we have deducted the allowance for October. Now, we hope that this can be endorsed this month, and we use this month as the basis. You still have time to want to follow up? My question hasn't been answered. Yes, this paper is about November, but the fact remains that the previous paper is invalid now, but you would save a sum of money. How are you going to spend this sum of money that you have saved for October? Given the fact that these senior citizens need to be assisted, I mean, definitely they wouldn't need assistance only in November, but not in October. Secretary, well, for the allowance, we work on the basis of the principle that we start dispersing the money for the month in which this is endorsed, and the policy in the budget, in the policy address, there are different priorities, and there are so many things that we have to do in the context of welfare. The money will not be wasted. Definitely, the money will go back to the general revenue for other users. I've got about a minute or so. Many said that they are given another $1,000, but it doesn't help much. It's better than nothing. If this is endorsed, how soon are you going to review the allowance for upward adjustment? Secretary, well, we have the SSAIP, the Social Security Assistance Index of Prices. Each year we would look at the price movement and make adjustment. Every year there is a likelihood of adjustment depending on the trends. Now, right now, as of end of September, it is already 3.7%. We will have the October figure soon enough. We'll let members know how this is going to be done. All right, tabled in front of you, members, is the reply to the question raised by members. We only have the Chinese version. I don't think we have the English version. I'm not sure whether they haven't got time to get this done or not, but only in Chinese. If members would like to have to put your questions in English, by all means, the Secretary will answer your question in English. Mrs. Regina Ip. Chairman, thank you. By way of procedure, you said you explained these three parts to our meeting, and there is a break in between. We have so many amendments to be moved. There are 20 questions raised by 23 members, and we have the replies here. How are you going to conduct the meeting, Chairman? Do you allow us to raise our hands and put questions, or are we going to get these 23 questions out of the way? How are we going to deal with the amendments? Right, let me say this in response. Well, I have reason to believe that some members put these questions in writing, and if these members are happy with the replies, then they probably wouldn't put any more questions. Well, the sum or the time may have changed, but I think we have had really a lot of discussion last time. I don't really anticipate any intention on the part of members to follow up on these written replies. In accordance with the FCP, we'll have to let members put the questions, and then we'll put this to the vote. If nobody is going to say anything more, then we can put it to the vote. But if members would like to do something under 37A, then we'll have to deal with it from there.
Well, members have been saying that they would like to see an early approval to benefit the elders. So would you plan to set a time limit for the first round of speech and then a time limit for the second round of speech so as to be more effective? Last time for both rounds, members were able to speak for 5 minutes. Yes, for today, we've got a new paper. I suppose that we have 5 minutes for the first round and then 3 minutes for the second round. Just now, the members who spoke did not have to use up all the 5 minutes. So I did say 5 minutes, but I feel that many members would like to move quickly. So we all want to save time. So I will tie in with your requirements. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Next, Mr. James Tian. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. At the Welfare Services panel, the Liberal Party spoke about our position, but at the FC meetings, we weren't able to speak a lot because we didn't have time. As soon as the administration make an announcement about the policy, the Liberal Party would like to ask this question about the OALA. $2,200, is it for the sake of a token of respect for the elders, or is it for the alleviation of poverty? But then in English it is called Old Age Living Allowance. So to us it is more for alleviation of poverty than respect for the elderly. Therefore we believe that means testing is needed. Yes, if it is sort of a fruit money to respect the elderly. In Hong Kong, whether they are in the middle class or not, they have been contributing to Hong Kong a lot. So $1,050 as a fruit money should not require means testing. But then when it is for alleviation of poverty, then means testing is needed. Now, if it is about alleviation of poverty, then who should be eligible? In other words, what is meant by being poor? Of course, we haven't got a poverty line. Now, the administration is saying that $186,000 would be the line to be drawn. For us, the Liberal Party, we have got colleagues making analysis about the economic data. We have good medical services, so life expectancy reaches 80-something. So when you retire at the age of 65, when you have about $4,000, you still have to dip into your pocket for $2,000. So $24,000 a year. $500,000 for a few decades. So the Liberal Party is of the view that the figure of $186,000 should be raised to $500,000 from the data of the Census and Statistics Department. For the figure of $186,000, if we draw a line there, then 380,000 elders will benefit. When it is raised to $500,000, then we have another 100,000. In other words, 100,000 elders more. They will get $22,000. In other words, $2.7 billion a year. In terms of the figures, the government spends $200 billion. And if we add $2.7 billion, it should be sustainable. There's no need for us to worry that in a year or two's time, with the population aging, we would be faced with a problem. We put forward our views. Other parties also voiced their views. The DAB talked about $300,000. We feel that $186,000 would be too low a level. But then, having heard us, the other day, the CE, in his opening speech here, he said that he would like to improve the cooperation between the legislature and the executive. But then if the package is to remain the same, then does it mean that the executive can have its way and then the lawmakers can only raise our hands to say yes? Because we did voice our opinions, but then they didn't change the package. They haven't told us why $500,000 or $300,000 would not be the correct figure. They're simply saying that $186,000, take it or leave it. Now, the Liberal Party studied the matter. If the government doesn't change it, we will continue to vote in abstention. And then we leave it to other legislators to say yes or no to the issue. But of course, the administration can tell us why they think that $500,000 from the Liberal Party, $300,000 from the DAB is not the right sum, and why they insist on $186,000. Secretary, $186,000 isn't really a figure plucked from the thin air. Well, in fact, for those applying for OAA in the age band of 65 to 69, they have to meet this means testing. And we have lowered it from 75 to 70. Now people are saying that for those who are retiring at 65, they haven't got anything to rely on. So we try to be flexible, and therefore we have imposed a means test. And therefore we're using the same yardstick. We haven't tightened it, and we want to be generous, and it is going to be effective. Moreover, $186,000 is not going to be set in stone. As I have said, it will at least be $192,000 come next year. And then the AIP will soon be adjusted, so it will be more than $186,000. It is going to be adjusted upwards. Dr. Kiki Kwok, maybe you can wait for your second round. We need to manage the time. Dr. Kiki Kwok, not yet here. Then Mr. Vincent Fang. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. We didn't speak on the last two occasions because we didn't want to hold back the item. Now we are already in the month of November, and we want to tell you what the Liberal Party would like to share with you. Mr. Tian has made his speech, and I also want to say something. Last week, Mr. Lam Tai Fai said that the director of the Bureau was putting it on the spot by insisting on this package. I don't want to repeat the point. Secretary, in your speech, you always cite the same slogan. That is, you have to be conscious of the time. Everything is integrated. The time schedule is very tight. I think you need to feel embarrassed for saying this. Now, for this special allowance for the elderly, when compared with the $6,000, I think if you do away with the means testing, then they are just the same. It is going to benefit the citizens, and you are handing out money. How come that it is met with so much opposition? This is because in Hong Kong, the political landscape is such that everything is being politicized. For lawmakers who have been returned to the chamber, lawmakers will say that when elected, they will start their electioneering work for the next term. Now the administration is mindful about the popularity rating. Now, for welfare is supposed to benefit the community, so the administration would like to do this. However, for the Legislative Council, I think it is something that is rushed through. On the 30th of October, a number of deputations came here to speak at the hearing. We were expected to come to a decision on the 31st, but did the administration listen to the views of the deputations at the hearing, or did you have a preset position in mind? So I find the mindset of the administration quite wrong. Now you make a proposal. When we spot room for improvement, it is not that we are opposing your proposal. We simply say that there's room for improvement, and we are telling you that. And now you are telling us that you don't have to listen to us. If you listen to us and agree with us, your credibility will be dented, and then we try to gain credit for that. I think this is a wrong attitude. Means testing is necessary. Otherwise, and I know many rich men who are above the age of 70. There's so many of them in Hong Kong. The Hong Kong Stadium can't accommodate all of them, and they shouldn't be given this OALA. Now, the Liberal Party and the DAB are asking you to make changes. I think it is correct. We say $500,000, DAB says $300,000. But the administration is being firm. The government is trying to ask the DAB to change tack. So DAB members are suffering from schizophrenia. For the Liberal Party, we will stand firm. We aren't lobbying for votes. We are not afraid of pressure. So we're able to do what is right and reject what is wrong. So we are following the core of our conscience. Therefore, I hope that the administration will think twice. Now, if sometimes you have to be firm on certain issues, and sometimes you have to take a softer touch, but you don't. So I find it awkward. The administration is supposed to formulate policies. You are the leader. You can't just look at the public opinion. If you think that the policy is right, you are the policy maker. So you need to lead public opinion rather than simply following public opinion. You need to have the long-term horizon in mind. Like before the handover, there were strong voices against the construction of the new airport at Chek Lap Kok, but the government went ahead irrespective of the opposition. Just imagine what will happen to our economy today if we haven't built the new airport at Chek Lap Kok. So the government should have been firmer on certain issues, but you haven't. Now our unemployment rate is at a very low level. Does it mean that we have shortages in all industries? So for the Liberal Party, we've got 3 points to make. First of all, we are firm on the point of insisting on the means testing. Secondly, the means testing criteria should be raised upwards, and then you have to backdate it to October. It's a matter of whether you do it or not. Your time is up. Mr. Lee Chek-yen. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. At least the Liberal Party makes it clear as to what it thinks, and it will abide and stand by its own position. Now, the Liberal Party said that the DAB members were suffering from schizophrenia. Sometimes it would say that it would insist on $300,000 and then it would support the government. Now, the FTU is mixing up what is right, what is wrong. You should condemn the government instead of condemning those members who would like to filibuster. The government says that we can't backdate to October. We must have means testing, and that's the greatest problem. Now, you say that the elders should be given the benefit early. Now, if the government is to backdate it to the 1st of October, then that's a happy ending. So you should have condemned the administration. So I think it's a matter of the administration being the main culprit. There are 2 main culprits here. First of all, means testing. For us, the Labour Party is strongly against means testing. This is because many have said that this is a welfare item, it is alleviation of poverty, and so there must be means testing. I think that's the fundamental difference. The government says that it is for elimination of poverty. If it is indeed elimination of poverty, then this is not the way to go about it. $2,200, it is neither here nor there. If someone is really poor, he can't live on $2,200. Why don't you allow elders who live with their family members to apply on their own for CSSA? Then, according to Oxfam, then it means that they can stay away from poverty, and then they can get $4,000 instead of $2,200. Be categorical, be decisive, and then you can eliminate poverty. Unfortunately, it is neither here nor there. You are not helping the poor, and you're not willing to help them to come out of poverty. And then you come out with 2 tiers, and then you have to create 90 plus posts costing us $20 million to pay for the salary. So you are creating an administrative structure for the purpose of means testing, for vetting. And for the elders who have to undergo the vetting mechanism, it is very intrusive. Of course, the administration, the Director Bureau will say that, yes, we noted your point about being intrusive, and so there will be auto-conversion. But in 2014, the elders have to make declarations again, so again, it is very intrusive. So our fundamental difference is we believe that this OALA should transit into a universal retirement protection. I think currently what we get should be a downsized and temporary universal retirement protection. Now, the elders have been working hard their whole life to contribute to the society. Give them $2,200. Is it asking for too much? So basically, we are against the idea that this is elevation of poverty. It is a retirement protection. So that's the major difference. We also strongly condemn the administration for insisting on means testing and refuse to show the due respect to the elders so that they can have a decent living and they can get something like a subsidy, so that when they do draw it, they don't have to undergo means testing and they will still have the dignity. So they know that they don't get it because they are poor, but they get it because they are part of Hong Kong. And again, I would like to condemn you for failing to backdate it to the 1st of October. Last time you didn't answer this question. If you talked about fiscal discipline, Mrs. Carrie Lam used to be the Deputy Secretary for the Treasury. Would you like to give him time to answer? Yes, for the remaining time, please answer the question. You are wasting another few more seconds. It is said that if we backdate it to 1st of October, there's no fiscal discipline. Why is it so? You're repeating yourself. Give him time to speak. For the CS4A, she made a number of points. I think you're taking words out of the context. On the other day, she did say that this could be considered, but she did point out that there would be long-term implications and it would also create a bad precedent, and so the government must give it serious consideration. Our position is clear and the CA has also given a clear explanation. If it is really fiscal discipline, then you do need to consider it all. Mr. Lee Chek-yen, your time is up.
Mr. Leung Yu-zhong. Well, Chairman, I appreciate what Mr. Vincent Fang said. He said what he said without fear of favor. I think those who are concerned about the OALA would feel the same as well. We have been put on the spot. The government is trying to restore the popularity, and they ask us to endorse this as soon as possible without any retrospective effect. If I may refer to para 22, normally this kind of proposal doesn't carry any retrospective effect, and there is a fiscal discipline. And this OALA will become effective on the day the proposal is endorsed, and there is no retrospective effect. Today is November the 9th. If this is endorsed today, then the effective date should be today. So for you to go back to the 1st of November, it would effectively be retrospective by nature. Why can't you backdate it longer than the 1st of November? I mean, if you fix it at 1st of November, then it is a retrospectivity. So we are talking about backdating anyway. How can you reconcile this, Mr. Secretary? Now, you said that you propose 1st of November. Why don't you propose 1st of October? Why do you propose the first day of a month in which the funding proposal is endorsed? So the retrospective effect would date back to the first day of that particular month instead of earlier. Secretary, I want to defer to the FSTB because this has to do with the financial arrangement. Perhaps Miss Elizabeth J. might wish to say something. I must say something first, Chairman. Well, let them answer first. Let them answer first. No, I have to. Well, I am the chairman here. Well, I've called upon the administration to answer the question, and you're putting another question. You said you don't have to. You don't have to reply, Miss J. Well, in para 20 of the reply, basically for items that the FC hasn't quite given the endorsement, we would not have any effective date prior to that. There are individual examples for welfare expenditure. Now, in order to facilitate the calculation of the expenditure, we would fix the effective date on the first day of the month in which the funding proposal is approved. Now, we did have examples like this, but these are exceptions to the rule, and normally we don't have retrospectivity. Well, she said that there is such an exception. Why can't we have an exception here? Now, your rule is you don't have retrospective effect, but here you said that the effective date will be the first day of the month in which the funding approval is given, and this is easily understandable, and this will not go against the established procedures. Why not? Why doesn't it go against the established procedures? You don't have retrospectivity. I think you're being fork-tongued here. Now you can have backdating if you facilitate a calculation. I mean, if you backdate it to the first of October, why not? Why does it make it so difficult to calculate, Miss J? Well, why not 1st of October? The answer is because the funding proposal is not endorsed in October. Well, your time is up, Mr. Fernando Zhang. Chairman, thank you. If I may pick up on this particular question, this retrospective effect, I think the administration has put LegCo on a tight spot. The senior citizens would like to see this through as soon as possible because they do need the money. The government doesn't make it very clear. Whenever we endorse the funding, the money will not be dispersed until March next year, or they will start making the application then. And there are a couple of months away from the actual implementation. So I think we have to consult the members of the public. There should be sufficient discussion here at this council. This is the procedure that has been serving us very well. You don't respect that. We are asking you the question about fiscal discipline. I find you to be wholly undisciplined. Now, this proposal hasn't become public policy. This hasn't received any funding from the LegCo, and you are producing these publicity materials to publicize the OALA, and you're raising people's hope, and people are anticipating these $2,000. Well, would this be endorsed? Or would this be endorsed in its entirety? Why do you have to do so? I think you always have the final say, and before you get the endorsement of the Finance Committee, you're doing all this, and this is disrespecting the Finance Committee. They take it as if we would give the endorsement. That in your publicity, you didn't have any subjunctive mode, and you made it clear that the $2,200 will be dispersed to the senior citizens. There has to be some procedure. Do they follow any procedures? Do they have to follow the rules of procedure? You talk to us about discipline. What discipline do you observe? If you talk about discipline, then you have to reflect upon it yourself, what discipline you're following. And in para 26, the effective date, if we link the effective date to the 1st of October, then there is no rationale. If there is no rationale, why do you have to insist on this being endorsed in October? The CS said that she wouldn't rule out the possibility of dating it back to the 1st of July. And now you said that there is no rationale. Who doesn't have the rationale. Why do you have to sink so low? Why do you have to stoop so low and to hold LegCo to ransom? Why do you have to disrespect the procedures of LegCo? Why do you have to disrespect the right of the part of the public to air their views? We're just beginning our term, and this is the first funding proposal presented to the Finance Committee. Why do you have to be undisciplined like that? Now, how much money did you spend this time before LegCo endorsed the funding proposal, mounting the publicity, including the APIs, the pamphlets, the flyers, the manpower? How much money did you spend on all these to publicize this OALA that hasn't been approved by the Finance Committee of the Legislative Council? Secretary? Well, thank you very much, Mr. Zhang. We're not disrespecting LegCo. The APIs that we produce, we use the free airtime on television and radio. We're trying to get across the message that this is an important poverty alleviation measure. We are talking about proposal. If you notice the wording, we tread very carefully. This remains a proposal. The reason why we do so is many senior citizens don't have a sufficiently clear idea about the whole thing, and there may be some misunderstanding. We'd like them to understand that this poverty alleviation measure. So this is intended to get the message across. A lot of senior citizens would watch television. We just like to do so like this. How much? How much? He hasn't answered my question. Well, you have to leave it to the second round. This question was asked before. Well, this is a specific question. He hasn't given me a reply. Please leave it to the second round.
Mr. Raymond Chen, now today is the 9th of November, Mr. Chairman. The administration is still saying that it would not even give concession slightly. The DAB wants the means testing criterion to be raised to $300,000. Why wouldn't the administration give way and allow the DAB to say that they can successfully get it done? It will be a happy ending. Why is it that Mr. Wong is urging us not to ask questions so that we can endorse it and then the elders can get it earlier? Is it because the FTU has already met with CY and has come to an agreement and would say yes to the proposal? Otherwise, there's no change from the administration's position on day one. The administration just regards the proposals of the FTU as nonsense. Is it because you have come to an agreement, so you urge us to be quick and ask us to put the matter to the vote quickly? I cannot understand it. Today, we talk a lot about the retrospective effect. Last time, we asked the CE as to whether there would be exceptions. He said categorically that there would not be any exceptions. But he also admitted that it's not a matter of not being able to do it. It's a matter of not wanting to do it. The former Director of Social Welfare, Mr. Fisher, came up with a suggestion so as to allow everybody to step down gracefully. He said that perhaps in the budget or in the policy address, an additional month's payment of the OAA can be given, and then the elders can benefit from it. So my point is, are you going to do this so as to set the minds of the elders at ease? Now, for the Pan-Democrats, we have come up with 33 questions. I'm not part of the camp in this case, so I only saw the questions this morning. Now, in this paper, the question is about the acquisition of annuity. We have just got a reply. Maybe colleagues don't have time to read the answers, but then the answers are not given in the right order. So I think they don't want to give an answer directly. Now, is it possible for an elder to use up all his savings to buy an insurance product? Now, towards the end of it, it is said that the cash value will not be included. In other words, currently we haven't got any ceiling. So old ladies, old men can use up all their savings to buy an pension, insurance product. But of course, we have to be careful. Probably Mr. Chen Kim-po will have a lot of trouble. Many insurance companies are designing products to attract the elders to buy their products. So my question is, can they dodge the means testing by spending all their money on insurance products in the form of entities or things like that? Director. In our paper, we have already given an account. Cash value of insurance schemes will not be included. In the case of the normal OAA, when it comes to income and means testing, we adopted the same criterion. We exclude the cash value of insurance products. This is because we believe that the allowance is for elders who have the financial need. Now, people take out insurance for medical purposes. They take out life insurance or critical illness. They want to prepare for the rainy days, and therefore we're excluding the cash values of the insurance schemes because of this rationale. Now, as to how the elders are to make arrangements concerning the assets, is up to them. So can we go out to buy a product worth $1 million, $2 million tomorrow? It's up to elders to make their own arrangements. They have to be cautious and they have to manage the risk. I'm sure their family members and other members of the community, as well as the administration, have the responsibility to explain clearly to the elders about the purpose of the allowance. It's for the needy elders. If you have the need, then you apply for it. So the administration would never say that, yes, you may do it, you can do it, because the administration does not take up the responsibility. Next, Dr. K.K. Kwok. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Just now, many members have spoken. Now, it appears that if we start asking questions, Mr. Wong Keen is no longer here, but I think it's quite outrageous for them to make such comments. We used to be on the same side. We ask for undertakings. We want to know whether within the current term of the administration, we will have universal retirement protection. And then for the OALA, we say that there shouldn't be any means testing for those aged 70 or above. We used to be on the same side. Now you are changing tack, and yet you are criticizing us for not changing tack together with you. You want to change tack, so be it. What is most difficult for me to accept is that they are saying that all the elders will be claiming this allowance, but I don't think so. You are trying to divide the society. You are dividing the elderly population for those who are aged 70 or above. You are also driving a wedge in the legislature. For the answers that we have just been given, I think it is difficult to understand the answers. First of all, I want to ask a question about fiscal discipline. I don't know since when the administration has come up with this fiscal discipline, because we all remember that last year, without any policy support and in the absence of all other considerations, the administration started to hand out the $6,000. And Dr. Fernando Zhang asked a question which went unanswered. The LegCo has yet to give approval. You need to pay for the production cost for the API. Don't say that it doesn't cost you anything. You did produce APIs and you are broadcasting the APIs to tell the elders that they can get the OALA. I think it is a lack of discipline at all. If you do respect the LegCo, practice what you preach, but you haven't done so. Now, if you want it, you say fiscal discipline. If it is not pleasing to your ears, you say that it isn't. My question is, when did you go against the fiscal discipline? And in fact, every time when you have a pay rise for the civil servants, you always depart from the fiscal discipline. So again, the interests of the civil servants are made above the elders' interests. You always dismiss it by saying that it is a special arrangement and so it is dealt with in a special way. Now, Mr. Fisher suggested that perhaps you could give an additional month's payment. Have you considered it? And for the papers from the Central Policy Unit, I don't think this is what we've been asking for. What we are asking for is the data about retirement studied by the Central Policy Unit, and we want to know about the future direction of your policies. Ms. Chair can give answers to the questions concerning fiscal discipline. Ms. Chair, fiscal discipline embraces a broad concept. Under different circumstances, we can give it different interpretation. Say, for example, when we prepare our budget as to what practices, what principles we have to adopt. What about the giving out the money last time? Let her finish first. We want to have a balanced budget. Now today we talk about allocation of resources. When it comes to fiscal discipline, it means that before the FC gives approval, we shouldn't make it effective unless we backdate it to the first day of that month. I think in the past all along we have been upholding this principle, and what we want is a system, and it is not at the whims of individuals. So it is an unspoken rule, it is a discipline. The member asked whether civil servants' interest prevails above that of the elders. Certainly not. When the FC gives approval, then the funding request will come into effect. And then here we are talking about pay adjustments, and not just confined to civil servants. For the judicial officers, if they have an adjustment of their pay, again, that would come into effect on the 1st of April, and we have to follow a certain mechanism. If we need more time to deal with it, and by the time we come to the FC, if we have already passed the 1st of April, generally speaking, all along, you have agreed to backdate it to 1st of April. So other than civil servants, this applies to the judicial officers as well. And for legislative members who have adjustments to your remuneration, again, we follow the convention of backdating it to the 1st of October. Mr. Liu Chang-kong. Mr. Chairman, every society must uphold social justice and help the vulnerable groups. One usual method is to eliminate poverty. And we need a screening mechanism to differentiate the needy from those who don't need the resources so that we can be focused in our assistance. Now, for the OALA, one of the controversies is whether there should be income and asset tests. The administration has said very clearly that this policy is to help the poor. In other words, a means test, and it is necessary. Some members think that we need to do away with the income and asset test. I don't think so, because you are ignoring the policy objective. And it is also not reasonable in a few ways. First of all, if you give it out irrespective of financial means, you are handing out resources to some people who don't need it. And if you insist of giving it out irrespective of financial means, it means that the needy and those who don't need it will be bundled together. It will be a zero-sum game. And if the funding request cannot be approved, those who need it will get nothing at all. And thirdly, there is this school of thought. It is said that by having a means testing, you are antagonizing those who can meet the means test and those who can't. Unless we have got endless or unlimited resources, we can't have any elimination of poverty measures according to this kind of thought, because all elimination measures will antagonize or polarize the two groups. But I don't think in this way you can uphold social justice. Now for the OALA, it is going to be long-term and it will have recurrent implications. Therefore, I believe that means testing is necessary. For the other elimination measures like CSSA and also the higher OAA for those aged 70 and 75, legal aid and the textbook assistance, all of them are subject to means testing. Why should we make OALA an exception? If we are to remove the means testing, it means that it will have an impact on other items of public expenditure. We can't ignore the impact on public expenditure, and we have to make sure that resources will be put to best use. All welfare policies must have the long-term implications being examined. Otherwise, the tax burden will be huge and it will be on the shoulders of the future working population. This has to do with the long-term interests of the society. We have to be very cautious. I believe that this scheme is a good starting point. I believe that it can take care of the needs of the poor elderly. Of course, some people will think that the limit is set at too harsh a level. However, whenever you try to draw a line, there will always be somebody who's not happy with it. Why do we give it approval first, and in future, if necessary, we can ask the administration to make the appropriate adjustments. Now for the OALA, perhaps it can't please everybody. It is not perfect, and we can't resolve the problem of elderly in poverty once and for all. But I don't think we can count on one single measure to deal with the problem. We need to look at the question of an aging population and retirement protection. We require extensive consultation and broad consensus before we can work on it. We can't just do it indirectly, and we can't afford to hijack this item in order to achieve that purpose. Well, this policy has got good intentions, and it can ease the burden of the elders. I can't see any rationale to object to it. Some members want to have a more generous scheme, but we can't veto a good scheme just because of that. Because in this way, the needy elders will also lose out. Mr. Chen Hanban.
Chairman, the DAB urges the asset limit be raised to $300,000. This is a reasonable proposal. The $186,000 would make it very difficult for the senior citizens, so the DAB will still insist on the $300,000 ceiling. Many elderly rang us up to say that they would like to get the benefits as soon as possible. We don't really want to delay the matter any further than necessary. So we have weighed up all the factors, and we have also conducted studies, and we decided that it would be the best course of action for us to support these proposals so that the senior citizens would get the OALA as soon as possible. The earlier debate means that the senior citizens will stand to lose 1 month's benefit. If we filibuster like this, then they will lose another month and another month's allowance. In putting together the budget, in terms of the disability allowance and fruit money, there should be double pay, as it were, so that the senior citizens would be compensated for the loss that they have suffered. And this council should not hold off this proposal anymore, because otherwise the senior citizens will not be able to get the allowance soon enough. Now, if this is endorsed this month, will the senior citizens be able to get the benefit as scheduled? Please answer this question, Secretary. And if this funding proposal is endorsed, how soon the asset ceiling of $186,000 be reviewed, and how soon are you going to consider the proposal of the DAB for $300,000? Secretary. Right, thank you very much for your support. In terms of the timetable, as I said before, if we get this through the Finance Committee today, the SWT will try their hardest to make up for the lost time. Now, we meant to get this through in October for a rollout in March. So we try to get this done in March. It hinges on whether this is endorsed today. If this is not endorsed today, and if there is any further delay, there would be knock-on effects. In terms of the asset ceiling, $186,000. By the time it is implemented, it should be $190,000 because we have seen a rise of 3.7%. Shortly, we should have the figure for members. There will certainly be an increase. Earlier, we said categorically that if this is implemented, we will be conducting a review in a year's time to see how we can enhance the scheme. The CS announced that the Commission on Poverty will be set up, and there will be a task force looking at the social security and retirement protection. And this will also look at the fruit money and this scheme. In a year's time, we hope that we should be able to come back to the Council as to the way forward. Now, we are being pragmatic. We would like to help the senior citizens first, to offer them immediate allowance, and we would have short-term, medium-term, and long-term proposal to improve the situation. Well, the question was $300,000, the DAB proposal, would this be considered? Secretary, well, this will be reviewed 1 year after its implementation. At the moment, it is $186,000. This is on good basis. This is not a figure from thin air. Now, we would have a look at the response. Secretary, I put another question. Next year, in terms of the CSSA, the fruit money, the disability allowance, there should be double allowance. Will this be considered? Secretary, well, this would fall outside the context of this OALA. This would be in the context of the policy address and the budget. Now, you have reflected the views. I'm sure that they would listen to what you have to say. Ms. Sitho? Chairman, thank you. On the 4th of November, the Labour Party already wrote to the authority and urging them not to use the tens of thousands of senior citizens as hostages. And there should be a double pay. I mean, if this is not endorsed in November, we can have triple pay for the senior citizens, because you would have paid the money anyway, starting from October. Now, we have to look at the whole system to ascertain the reasonableness of the system. We're not trying to save you money. We're trying to help the senior citizens. Since you're going to spend the money anyway, now we've gone past October, why don't you give them an ex gratia payment? Give them double pay. What's so difficult about it? I mean, you spend 2 weeks' time deciding on the $6,000 for the whole of Hong Kong. And this went against all the disciplines, and you caved into political pressure. I think there is a need for us to engage in discussion and scrutinized the whole project. And this proposal is not family friendly at all. Now, we said that for CSSA, the government should do away with the bad boys declaration, as it were. There are some newspapers that have headline reports on this. So I hope that you would have a look at that report first before coming here. There are some senior citizens that are inquiring about how they can get divorced because they want to achieve they want to maximize the asset ceiling. Now, together they have to fulfill the $200,000, but individually we're talking about $186,000. Now, if they get divorced, then they would benefit from the ceiling of $360,000. The government is so immoral. I mean, that you are encouraging divorces. These people have been together for 60, 70 years because of this asset declaration. They are inquiring about divorces, and they may ask you for legal aid, and they may ask you for housing, and you stand to lose more than you gain, Secretary. Now, the report, the newspaper report, covers this story. I am being pragmatic. I haven't quite thought about this. I am merely saying that it is not family friendly to ask people to sign the bad boys declaration. There are some NGOs that have received inquiries from the senior citizens about how they can get divorced in order to fulfill this asset ceiling criteria. Are you putting a question? Yes, indeed. I'm putting a question to the Secretary. Some senior citizens, in order to measure up to the requirement, they're 60, 70 years old. I mean, they are seeking divorces, Secretary. Yes, I noticed that report as well. Now, for these NGOs or counselors or the younger generation, I hope that they will tell the senior citizens that the idea of this scheme is to alleviate poverty. We have to ask whether they do need the assistance in the first place. This is taxpayers' money. We're focusing the resources on the needy elders. Do they or should they reserve the resources for the needy? I think as younger generation, we have to explain this to the senior citizens. We will publicize this. This has to do with the values of the community. I don't think it makes sense to get divorced in order to get this allowance. Yet they will stand to lose more than they gain. Mr. Ho? Well, now we're talking about $100,000 more than the fruit money that they get. If they don't have the need, why would they bother seeking divorce proceedings in order to qualify? Now, they have been together for 30, 40 years, and they just want to get an additional $1,000. And they're inquiring about this. I think it is really disgraceful for the administration to force the senior citizens to even do that, and you're saying that they don't have the need. Mr. Sin Chung Kai? Mr. Michael Tien. Chairman, thank you. I've heard the debate for so long. It seems to me that other than the minute details, we are basically talking about the following things. The means test, first of all. I said before, and I say again, that we have different values here. We may debate for months on end without achieving any consensus. Now, if you talk about public opinions, I did debate Mr. Lee Cheuk-yan at phone-in program. There are half a dozen people phoning in. Whatever asset they have, the senior citizens, all of them, are in support of the means test. Now, this is my personal experience. For the other things, the opinion survey and so on, I don't comment on them. Now, whether we should have means test, I don't think there are any divergent views out there. Second, backdating. Now, before we endorse the funding, how can we backdate the project? Now, members mentioned previous examples, and the government said that for recurrent expenditure would normally start on the 1st of April. And some other members said that if you backdate it to the 1st of a particular month, and that is retrospectivity in the first place, why can't you backdate it earlier? Now, if I may put this to the administration again, do we not have any precedents regarding retrospective effects? Do we have any examples of backdating, a proposal like this, backdating to the beginning of the month, that is? Second, about the asset ceiling. Mr. Vincent Fang made the point that the DAB suggested $300,000, the Liberal Party suggested $500,000, and they are correct. I don't understand, I can't understand why he said both figures are correct. Well, anybody proposing an amount of more than $186,000, they have to explain how the sum is worked out, whether there is any consensus in the community. Second, for the government to shell out the money, there has to be a concrete figure. Now, if I may put this to the administration, with $186,000, each year you're going to spend $6 billion. Now, you can work it out. If it is pitched at 300,000 or $500,000 in terms of ceiling, asset ceiling, can you work out the sum that you're going to disperse? Finally, I presume that if we increase this to $600,000, the amount of money would be billions and billions of dollars. Now, the senior citizens would get an additional $1,000 because they get their fruit money anyway. Is it necessary for us to do so? I don't think I can agree with that. Now, for us to spend an additional billions of dollars, I think we have to help those with very little asset. They should have some money for emergency needs. The HKCSS said that the basic needs would be $3,000 odd, and we can offer them an additional $3,000 odd. I hope that in the coming year the government will consider this, and this is the best way of optimizing the resources. I look forward to a reply. Secretary, well, I defer to Ms. Chair for the retrospective effect. Right, retrospective effect. Now, for pay rise for civil servants, pay rise for the judicial officers, there is a retrospective effect. And the other example is to date it back to the beginning of the month in which the proposal is endorsed. The examples are 1998, 3rd of April, the improvement to the CSSA proposal, and this dated back to the 1st of April 1998. It was endorsed on 3rd of April. Also, another CSSA proposal endorsed 96 April the 16th. It dated back to the 1st of the month. So it dated back to the month in which the proposal was endorsed, but there was no example of further dating it any further than that. Now, there are for the new term, electrical new term, members' remuneration or the district councillors' remuneration. We do have dating back in terms of to tie in with the tenure.
And then for education-related expenditure, sometimes it was backdated to the commencement of the school term. She hasn't answered my questions, but if you used more than 4 minutes, then she couldn't have sufficient time to answer your questions. Albert Hall, the Democratic Party is of the view that for those aged 70 or above, they should not be subject to means testing for them to apply for OALA, and therefore we cannot agree with the administration, mainly for 3 reasons. First of all, $2,200. Originally, it was supposed to be a special allowance for the elderly. To show our care for the elders, it should not have been regarded as alleviation of poverty. With a means testing, some elders will be denied the opportunity to be taken care of. Moreover, it will have a stigmatization effect and it will have a divisive effect. Moreover, when you introduce a vetting mechanism, yes, you talk about declaration, but in fact, there will be a review, there will be vetting. The consequence is, if you are wrong in the submission of information, and if it is regarded as deliberate omission or wrongful reporting, then there will be a criminal liability. And I don't think it is right to put this burden on the elders. $2,200 and an asset limit of $186,000. If they have less than $186,000, then they're eligible for it. If they have just slightly more than $186,000, then maybe transfer of assets, and this may give rise to controversies. And there are even people who are thinking of getting a divorce so as to be entitled to the OALA. For elders who have savings running to $100,000 to $200,000, so $2,200 for a year, it will be $20,000 or so. It won't be a small sum, but then there may be legal traps as a result. I think $186,000 being the asset limit is too small a sum. The Liberal Party and the DAB have asked for the limit to be raised. If you do away with the limit for those who are aged 70 or above, you only have to pay $3.6 billion more. And if you also dispense with the need for elders to apply together with their family, then more elders will be eligible for CSSA. And then the number of applicants for OALA will be fewer, and then the additional expenditure will be smaller than the sum of $3.6 billion. Now, this matter has generated a lot of controversies. I think it is quite meaningless. You are being very stubborn and you don't show sufficient care for the elders. And then for universal retirement protection, we haven't got any undertaking. And therefore, when you introduce the means testing for OALA, many of us would think that we would never see the introduction of universal retirement protection. So please don't be so stubborn. The society has been divided, and all this is unnecessary. Now back to your rules and regulations. In paragraph 6 of your paper, certain things are being discounted. Cash value of insurance products will not be counted, quite unlike the current arrangements for CSSA applications. Probably you're saying that you want to relax the rules, but it means that you are making it very confusing. Some people are saying that they want to take away divorce. We used to say that there are people who have forced marriages, but if people divorce deliberately so as to be eligible, are you going to take them to court for having a divorce wrongly? Secretary. I think the Democratic Party is not sure about the positioning of this policy. We want to spend the public money on the needy, so we must have a yardstick. We need to have a screening mechanism to identify the needy elders, and therefore we have got something which is up and running and established. The elders are most familiar with the yardstick under the OAA. Yes, it is not CSSA. We are being relaxed because for CSSA we are very vigorous in the vetting. Now we won't include the cash value and we won't include the income from mortgage because we really want to help the elders. Mr. Sin Chung Kai, it is wrong to say that the DP doesn't understand. We have been going through the paper a number of times. The CE came here for the question and answer session. He gave an answer. We heard his answer. In July, he came to address the LegCo. We read the paper again. It's not that we don't understand. It's that we don't agree with him. For paragraph 15A, 15D, this is about the beneficiaries who have to undergo a review. Are you talking about the new paper? I want you to give us the paper reference. You have to take both into account before they can give an answer. Well, for the original paper, 15D, it is said that in the third year, please give me another 20 seconds. From the third year of implementation onwards, OALA recipients will be subject to review. And then for the new paper, paragraph 17 and 18, you have given an answer. I won't repeat it. But then, in concrete terms, for those who are aged 70 or above, be it by way of postal application or auto-conversion. Now, from the third year onwards, what do they have to do? Do they still have to make declarations about the income once every 2 years? Well, what will happen if they don't declare? Do they have to declare in the first place? Now, if their children give them some pocket money, and then you give them $2,200 a month, and they are being frugal, and then they can accumulate more than $186,000, then they will exceed the limit. What will you do to them? Director. In the first 2 years of the implementation, we have a grace period. Therefore, in paragraph 12 of the supplementary paper, for the first 24 months, even if there are changes to the circumstances of the elders, even though there is a change in the income level or asset levels, they will not be affected. From the third year of the implementation onwards, we will look at the mechanism for the normal OAA. That is, we have a random checking for the purpose of review. First of all, elders don't have to make a declaration on a yearly basis. They don't have to declare annually. No need for that. But then, if elders do exceed the income limits or the asset limits, then they have the responsibility to come back to us and to give us the information they need to declare. And then from the third year of implementation onwards, we do have a review mechanism. We will select certain cases and we will take a more detailed look about the information. We will check whether they meet our requirements. So in the course of it, if we discover that the information declared is not the same as the facts, then first of all, we will try to understand the matter in great details, and then if the elders themselves did not omit the information or underreport the income or assets to us, then we will make a calculation about the overpayment. But if it is a deliberate act, then we will take further action to follow this up to see whether it is a breach of the law. So for the normal OAA, this is how the mechanism works. Mr. Sin Chung Kai. For the OAA, for those who will be selected for vetting, I think the chance is not high, because once they reach 70, they are not subject to the means testing. But then for the male, I think the life expectancy is 83, women 86. So from the age of 73 all the way up to their 80s, an elderly person may be saving up money all the time. So is the director telling us that once the savings exceeds $186,000 or the prevailing asset limit, he has to take the initiative to tell you that he has exceeded the limit and please stop paying me anymore. If he doesn't take this step, what will happen to him? Director, be quick. After an elder has applied for OALA and should there be exceedance of the income levels or asset levels, they have to declare to us. When this happens, we will find out about the actual circumstances and act accordingly. Mr. Wu Chiwai. Well, this is supposed to be a long-term commitment. You're going to have means testing. I think we can't query that. However, all along, the SLW has been insisting that the administration will be relaxed in the management. We have had a lot of discussion as to how one is to manage one's assets. I think we have come to new understanding. For us to have this sort of development, SLW, have you thought about it? Have you considered it? That is in relation to the moral hazards pertaining to this matter? Or are you simply placing all the burden and responsibility on the shoulders of the elders while claiming that you are able to come up with a long-term commitment for the elders? I read an article written by Professor Lui. He said that as an economist, of course, he's worried about the long-term financial implications. But then, if we turn it into a moral hazard, which is getting higher and higher, then he would rather adhere to the OAA mechanism. So, first of all, what about your assessment of the moral hazard? Did you ever make an assessment? And if you think that you can't dispense with the means testing for those aged 70, can you not lower it to sort of 75 so as to reduce the moral hazard? Thank you.
Secretary, thank you. Thanks very much, Mr. Wu, for the question. The moral hazard would exist if there is a yardstick, whether you pitch it at 500,000, 160, 86,000, 190,000. The hazard always exists, but the most important thing is to get across a positive message. So education and publicity would be important, and it would be a blessing if they have a good time, and if they get money from their kids, it is a blessing. Why do they have to compete with others for the OALA? Do they really need this an additional $1,000, Mr. Wu? Well, many 70-year-olds, they're living in the same old folks' home, and the lady next to her would get the money, and he doesn't. Now, the existing fruit money system has been around for a few decades. Many people are used to this. Now, if they look at the lady next to her, she gets $2,200, and she doesn't. Now, my question is, how do you carry on the review, Secretary? Now, wherever you draw the line, the moral hazard will exist. Now, whether the scheme would be sustainable, it is more important. We're not talking about a short-term distribution of money. As an accountable government, we have to make sure that the scheme is going to be sustainable. without creating a heavy tax burden for the younger generation. So I hope the members will understand that we have thought through this scheme. We're giving the best for the senior citizens, $2,200. Is it not liberal? We're not delving into their family details. 290,000 senior citizens don't have to do anything. And if they choose to remain in the old system, they don't have to do anything at all. We are making it very friendly. Well, Secretary, do me a favor. Please do not repeat what you already said. Now, the question was whether there was a reveal. Well, we would conduct a risk assessment. So you haven't done any assessment? No, it would be difficult for us to carry out such an assessment. Mr. Wu, well, normally there would be a risk assessment for any scheme, and you normally would try to minimize the scheme, but you haven't quite done that. Ms. Emily Lau. Couple of questions, if I may, Chairman. The supplementary reply, para 22, is about the fiscal discipline. When a proposal is presented to us, there can be no assumption that this will be endorsed, but they are making a lot of assumptions. Why do you mount all these publicity on television? Well, this has been asked many times. Well, let's deal with the questions one by one. Well, let me get all the questions in. I think last time it was Mr. Donald Tsang's campaign for the constitutional development. And also the government has campaigns regarding healthy living. Now, this one hasn't been endorsed, and you are mounting this publicity. What discipline are you talking about? And also 6A, about the reverse mortgage. This is an act of benevolence on the part of the government. I hope that this can be relaxed. Now, there was a question. Reverse mortgage would be excluded. Now, but for the amount of money that has been saved up, that would be included. Now, what sort of message are you getting across to the senior citizens? And also, we are very concerned about the universal retirement protection. Now, I think the government has really let the cat out of the bag. 34 says that the CPU will conduct household surveys, and experts will be commissioned to study the development in the 30-year horizon to come up with measures to enhance the existing system and to provide empirical basis for this purpose. And Para 35, the CS will be leading the task force to enhance the existing system. Secretary, you must be aware that we find the existing system not feasible, but you have your preconceived ideas. You merely try to enhance the existing system. Please do not deceive us by saying that what we said would be discussed. This is not true. Right, the accrued benefits. Now, in terms of universal retirement protection, the CPU has a timetable. It will look at the three pillars. I'm sure you're aware of the three pillars and the sustainability in 30 years. If this is not sustainable, we'll have to consider all the other possibilities. So we're not saying that we will not consider anything other than the three pillars. The CPU will look at how to enhance the existing system. If the three pillars have problems and we need new ideas, we do not rule this out altogether. This term of administration does have the opportunity. Now, this is an important part of our work. Director, in terms of income, these $6,660. In our definition, we said that the money that they get from the reverse mortgage will not be counted towards income. So because of this reverse mortgage, they will not find themselves in excess of the ceiling. Now, of course, we would look at the cash, the savings on the part of the senior citizens, and they have to fulfill the ceiling criteria. What about the reverse mortgage? If they haven't spent the money, what's going to happen? Mr. Raymond Wong, please be seated. In the reverse mortgage, the amount of money that they receive will not count towards income on a monthly basis. But when we look at the asset, we look at the savings, and Ms. Emily, what the savings arising from the reverse mortgage, would that be counted? Well, as I said, the money that they get will not count towards income, but they'll be counted as an asset. Right. The next question, Ms. Chair. Let me add, Chairman, the publicity fees don't really fall within this funding proposal. Ms. Lau, well, I'm not talking about this. I'm talking about the fiscal discipline. Before this is endorsed, why did you mount all this publicity? Isn't that ridiculous? If it wasn't you who mounted the publicity, was it? No, it wasn't me, but the Secretary already explained this already. Mr. Leung Kwok Hong, Chairman. The pro-establishment camp was trying to attack me for stopping the senior citizens getting the OALA. I am seeking for all those above the age of 70 to get the OALA. Do you agree that those above 70 years of age should be entitled to OALA? Secretary? Yes, under the policy, they get $1,090 without any declaration, but for the OALA, they have to be subject to the declaration system. This is the policy. Mr. Leung. Mr. Raymond Wong. Mr. Raymond Wong. The floor belongs to Mr. Leung Kwok Hong. If you carry on like this, I'm afraid I have to invite you out of the chamber. Do you want to go out? So please let Mr. Leung have the floor. Well, you said that without the declaration system, the whole thing would be unsustainable. You'll be running out of money, and you'll be increasing the tax burden. Is that what you said, Secretary? Well, I'm talking about the financial sustainability, Mr. Leung. Well, we suggested that there should be a universal retirement protection. $50 billion should be set aside for seed money, and for the senior citizens, it doesn't matter who they are, whether they have the MPF or not, they should get $3,000 each. And there is a sum of money. Have you read that yourself? What differential are we talking about between this and your proposal? Secretary, well, the government made it very clear that there is no consensus for the universal retirement protection. Well, Mr. Leung, this has nothing to do with today's subject, Mr. Leung. Well, no, the Secretary said last time that he comes here to implement Leung Chun-ying's manifesto. Does C.Y. Leung's manifesto have any consensus? He was returned by 1,200 people. Do we have any consensus? Do please come up with the statistics. How many votes did he get? 689. Where does he get a consensus from? If a chief executive has the mandate, then he would not have met with the fiasco with regard to the revamp of the government secretariat. There wouldn't have been all these scandals. You talked about consensus. C.Y. Leung's manifesto, does it have any consensus in the community? Yes or no? If yes, what is the basis of your argument? Secretary. Well, this proposal, Mr. C.Y. Leung gave the pledge during his election. So the consensus was a consensus of 689 people. Is that right? Secretary. We are implementing the pledges in the manifesto. This is the focus of the administration's work. Mr. Leung. Well, he merely got 689 votes. And this is construed as a consensus. And the whole thing is cast in concrete. Now, what we are seeking to change is for the 70-year-olds not to be subject to declaration. We're not asking for your life. If you spend a little bit more, why is it so difficult? Now, the government is putting up the stamp duty for the speculators. Mr. Michael Teen said he's worried about the expenditure. Well, if it is not sustainable, can't we increase the taxation by 1%? Would it be all that fatal? Would it be fatal for Hong Kong, Madam Chair, if we increase the taxation by 1%? Would it be all that detrimental? If we take $40 billion out of our reserve, would it be detrimental? What fiscal discipline are you talking about? You were issuing all these bonds and so on. I mean, would it be detrimental? Secretary, we've made it very clear that with any new policy, we have to look at the long-term financial commitment and capability, and this is very important. Mr. Raymond Wong. Well, if this were the council meeting, we would have rung the bell. I think Matthew Cheung, you are in a secure position. That's why you are so smart about it. You're boring us to death. You talked about being pragmatic, doing the real work, doing this for the senior citizens who thought through the scheme. All this is a load of rubbish. And you're hinting criticism at the former administration. You're so good. I mean, you're doing the real work. I mean, if you work under the previous administration, you were not doing the real work. And you are citing all these phrases. You know what this is all about. A moment ago, Leung Kwok Hong asked you a question about the fruit money. You said that this is not subject to means test. And I think you're really trying to be very smart. Now, at the very beginning, he didn't talk about a means test with this scheme, and then I think you contributed the idea and brought in the means test. I mean, even if we give them an additional $1,000, we are talking about $300 billion in 10 years. When I attended the senior citizens' birthday party in Hong Ham, the Hong Ham Cook Food Center, I told the senior citizens that my apologies, we will not let this OALA proposal pass. We'd like to fight to the bitter end, hoping that those above the age of 70 will be able to get an additional $1,000 without any asset declaration.
I asked them not to blame me, and they gave me a round of applause. Once I explained the matter to them, they understood it. I treated a number of elders to lunch, and most of them were in their 70s. In order to attend the lunch, some of them had to walk all the way from the housing estate. For the leftover, they packed it so that they could take it home. Of course, you're not aware of this because you're only interested in the figures. You were an administrative officer, so you just listen to the AOs. You lack the human touch. You lack the human-oriented mechanisms. We are arguing with you about backdating. We're arguing with you over fiscal disciplines. So you're being mechanical, but you're supposed to serve the people. You're supposed to work for the benefit of the elders. But no, you are being mechanical. You lack human nature. Well, this is a very illustrative point. Where have they gone? They shouted loudly, but they would let it off lightly. 30 questions in writing. In other words, there won't be any verbal questions. They try to drag it for a session and then they will quickly rush through the voting. But of course, Leung Kwok Hong is here not to let them off. Now, this filibustering is different from the former one for the deputy secretaries and the new government structure. Mr. Yip tried to obstruct us, but he couldn't beat it. Now, on this occasion, you have already formed the public opinion. This government won't listen to the people, but they are willing and they can mold the public opinion. Yes, you can go ahead to do it. It hasn't been endorsed and yet you are jumping the queue and then you are already having all the APIs. Even if I describe you for being shameless, you don't deserve even this label. What have you done? Very soon, we can only dwell on the 30+ questions. They ask very good questions, but only when writing. I will repeat the questions verbally, so this will drag on for a long period of time. Chair, you need to allow us to ask questions. It's not my problem, but I hope that we can have mutual respect. Please do not start being personal in your criticisms. Mr. James Chong, if I may ask some technical questions, so to speak. For the paper dated the 9th of November, paragraph 6 is about the declaration of income and assets. Here it says the assets will include land and non-occupier properties. Footnote 2 says that only one domestic property regarded as the main residence in Hong Kong will be excluded. So what does it mean? Does it include a car park space? Director of the Bureau or Director of Social Welfare. Domestic property will be excluded. What about a car parking space within the domestic property? If there is a car parking space together with the domestic property, it will be excluded. What about a few parking spaces if they are not rented? Exemption or exclusion. Are you going to exclude one or more than one? What if there are double or triple parking spaces? The way we see it is that non-occupier domestic properties will be regarded as assets. So should there be parking spaces, they will also be included. Now, if there's only one parking space, then of course it's not included. What if there are 3 parking spaces, none rented out? Will they be excluded as well if it is together with their domestic property? If it is a parking space included as part of the domestic property for self-use, then it will be excluded. So irrespective of the number. Now, domestic property, you can reside in it. For car parking spaces, if there are 2 or 3 and not being rented, not being leased, will be included. If the unit comes together with parking spaces, more than one parking space will still be allowed. I need to be very careful here, because if one buys a property together with a parking space, then I can understand. But sometimes when you buy a property, you don't have a parking space, and then probably dozens of years ago, a person may hold 3 parking spaces together with 1 domestic property, because he has to make arrangements for his children. Now you're getting to your second question. Let me finish. I need to understand your question. Now your second question is, he acquires a parking space not together with the original domestic property, but if it is still within the same development, will it be included? He may be residing at flat HC. He would not be residing at the car parking space within the same property development. I think that's a question. Mr. Fong, can you answer this question? He declares a domestic property for self-use together with a parking space. Now, I want to clarify this point as well. Now, when we talk about property, usually the title would include 1 parking space. If there are 2 or 3 more, if it is not leased, then of course I can understand this not to be counted. But what if there are additional parking spaces within the same development? They were acquired before, additional to the one attached to the unit. If it is not leased, it is just vacant, would it be regarded as asset or will it be included? If he declares that it is for self-use, yes, it's for self-use. So if he declares that it is for self-use, then it won't be included. All right. For non-occupier domestic properties. Sorry, what about if he resides in a flat of an industrial building? We are not supposed to live in an industrial building. What if he lives there? If he claims that he lives in a flat of an industrial building, it's not a matter of he claims to be so. It's not a subdivided flat, but he does live there. But he is in breach of other ordinances. But it's a matter for the Lands Department or Buildings Department as to whether he should be evicted. Mr. Fong, we talk about domestic properties here. So we make it clear that it should be domestic property. So industrial buildings will not be and could not be included. We'll finish with the first round of questions. For the second round, we have got 3 members. 3 minutes then. Lee Chek-yen, Fernando Zhang, Leung Kwok Hong. Mr. Lee Chek-yen, I think it's better to give us 5 minutes. No, we have asked many questions. Well, in fact, in your first round, you were on the same point. You criticized them, you scolded them for 10 minutes. I didn't speak at all last time. Of course I didn't. Now, you have 3 minutes. You still have 3 minutes only. It's unreasonable. I have a lot of things to ask about. I can't help but I draw on them one by one. SOW, what is the purpose of having the mandatory provident fund? If the purpose is to prepare for the retirement of the employees, so will MPF be included in the assets? I can answer the question on your behalf. Certainly you're going to include it because the MPF will be deposited into the account. So when you have the MPF, it means that it is being used to offset the OALA. In other words, you don't really have to pay anything for the purpose of the OALA. 5 years, 10 years down the road, many people start to have their MPF. So many people, the majority of them, won't be entitled to an OAA starting from 65 and not the OALA starting from 70. So does it mean that your MPF is to be used to enable the administration to have savings? because you don't have to spend on the OAA or the OALA. SLW is a portfolio for Professor Chen, but I can boldly say that for the MPF, by having a contributory system with contributions from employers and employees, a sum of money will be saved. You asked the question as to whether there will be an offsetting effect. I think in the long term, this effect may emerge, but for the short term, I don't think so. For the grassroots workers, the MPF has only been implemented for 11, 12 years. Even if somebody is to retire with MPF, the sum of money accumulated won't be great. Yes, SLW, this is exactly the point. You haven't had any retirement protection at all. In the long term, yes, it can be offset. Yes, you tell us the truth. For the MPF, it is to reduce the retirement protection in the long term. So in the short term, in the long term, you are making savings. In the short term, no. So it is not a long-term issue. You have always said that you must have means testing because in the long term, you won't be sustainable. But in fact, the converse is true. In the long term, you have offsetting. You can be sustainable. In the short term, why don't you give it to the elders? Please do not mix up the OALA and the MPF because some people don't have work. And they are exactly the targets of our alleviation of poverty measures, say, for example, the female population. Fernando Zheng, 3 minutes. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Well, since the questions are now on MPF, I also want to follow this up, though I have many other questions as well. Every year, last year, the figure was $43 billion, so not a small sum. Clearly, it is something for the retirement. I think the administration did say that this was going to be part of the retirement protection. Other than the OALA, even for the OAA and the CSSA for the elders, last year we spent $15 billion. Not a small sum. Now, according to your assessment, for this OALA, you're going to spend $6 billion. In other words, exceeding $20 billion. We have 980,000 elders. If you give them $3,000 per month, we're only talking about $30 billion a year. For MPF, for contributions, just in 1 year, we injected $43 billion. But what about the administrative charges? $6.6 billion going to the managers. Now, we have 3 minutes for this round. If you continue to express your views, and you've been going on for 2 minutes, they don't get a chance to reply. Mr. Chairman, I just want to set out the figures. Next year, for the administrative charges, we are going to spend $7.3 to $7.4 billion. A few years down the road, $8 billion. In 5 years' time, it means that we are clocking up $10 billion by way of administrative charges. In your paper, you talk about the universal retirement protection, but you won't do anything about it. You will simply improve the existing systems. In other words, you are not interested in turning the OALA, CSSA, MPF into an integrated whole. We need a comprehensive scheme. So for the current term government, do you have any vision? Do you have any plan? Do you want to do something about it? What is the vision about our future retirement protection? Does it mean that the people of Hong Kong would continue to have 10% being discounted from the salary, and we're wasting $10 billion by way of administrative charges under the MPF schemes?
Secretary, well, we made it very clear in the paper. The CPU will look at the sustainability of the 3 pillars. The Commission on Poverty announced today will also look at the Social Security system, the MPF, and also all the other elements to see whether they are sustainable. We keep our options open. It is close to 5:40. We take a 10-minute break. Let's come back at 5:50.